It is the 17th of November, and my apologies for cancelling yesterday's live stream, but today it's all good again. 17 days. That means we've had 16 days of creative sessions, and I hope you all have been able to make a wonderful progress. I have had good progress, so I'm satisfied with the results up until now. And I have to say, Saturday is a little bit harder, and I'll explain in a little bit why. For those who don't know me, my name is Ilse. I am a magic-wielding dragon companion and a creator of worlds. And the world I created is Tergane. Well, one of the worlds I created is Tergane, and it plays in a more tropical setting. Well, at least the first book, I think. Yeah, I think it will be the first book that plays in a tropical setting. And in the rest of the series, we'll also visit more desert-like settings and other settings. We'll see about that. And it's, how shall I say that? It's great to write in it and to discover the characters and all the stories that play in Tergane. And Saturday I had a bit of a problem because I needed to create a time gap between the previous chapter I had written and the chapter that would come after the chapter I was writing. But I think I found a solution. So I will continue working on that today and just see how it goes. And and then I'll see from there. So I will do 1 minute, one session of, one creative session. My apologies. My mind is everywhere this morning, and I did sleep good, so no idea what's going on. But that's fine. I will do one creative session of 60 minutes today, and I hope everything goes all right with your creative session. And for me, it will just be a lot of fun. I wish you all a wonderful time, and I will see you in 60 minutes. If everything is willing to cooperate anyway. There we go. See you in 60 minutes. this is the end of our writing session, creative session. Oh, wait. Yes, my apologies. Oh, I think you guys heard the birds echoing. I only now realized that on my other laptop I hadn't turned off the sound. My apologies for that. That's probably what I heard through everything, which I didn't realize. Anyways, I hope you had a great creative session. I have to say, it was alright for me. It wasn't perfect. I had to really look for things, think about things, but it's going. It's not as smoothly as I'm used to. But you know what? That's fine. That's all part of the writing process. I found out that I needed to check one small detail, because at some point the country where Nejat was born is mentioned, but I needed to know if both Finlay or if both Seamys and Finlay heard that, or if only Seamys heard that. So I had to do some digging, and I adjusted just one sentence in a previous chapter, and with that, they both heard it. So that's fine, because they need to know that these men are not, these men are from Tuama, which is Nejat's home country. Well, let me say it's the country Nejat was born and lived for the first 8 years before he and his mother went away and ended up in Dragon City. He really feels like Dragon City is his home country, is his hometown. Well, Dragon City is a city-state, and the capital is inside the cave, while outside there are also locations that are all part of Dragon City. My apologies. But Nejat really considers Dragon City as his hometown. So I needed to figure out if Finlay also heard the man talk about Tuama, because I and you know, when you're looking just for that one tiny detail, sometimes you have to go through all the other chapters that you wrote to make sure that that tiny detail is indeed relayed to that one character. So that took me some time, because at first I couldn't find it. So I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that I mentioned it somewhere, so where did I mention it? So in the end I found it, luckily. And I realized that there were two other things that I didn't let the boys discover, while they should know, they should have experienced it. So I fixed that as well. I found a name for one of the dragons of one of the companion dragons. I still need to figure out those terms. Specifically the one with whom Seamys has the bond. And that dragon is called Maris. And Maris is also connected to the sea. And that connection will be revealed way later on. I found the name and I was like, that's perfect. That's with what I have in mind, from what I understand from this story. Maris is perfect for this dragon. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting. um, I can't yet divulge in it. Well, I can give you guys one tiny sneak peek. Tiny. The dragon is called Maris, or Maris, or I call it Maris. Maris. I'll put it in the chat as well, so that you guys can see it. Where's the chat? Here it is. Seamys is dragon is called Maris. There we have it. There. Now, like I said, Maris is a name that's connected to the sea. And the dragon also has the colors of the sea: turquoise, blue, greenish. So you might think, okay, perfect, fits perfectly. But it's a fire dragon. So how? I will explain that. Well, no, I won't explain it. You will find it out in the books. I'm not gonna reveal that right now. You will find it out later on in the books. You will find more hints of similar things in the books, but I can't explain it because that would spoil a lot, and I don't want to spoil you guys. So yeah, I found the name. I think it fits perfectly. So that's positive. The boys have discovered a few things that they needed to discover, so that's good as well. I included that information that was really needed. I mean, as a dragon companion, you would know when you're not able to connect with your dragon. And I hadn't included any of that yet. So I was like, I made a mistake there. Because the boys at this point in the story are not able to connect with their dragons. With their dragon companions. So I fixed that. And I fixed a few other things. And I wrote some more in this chapter. And I think the time gap that I was talking about Saturday, it's coming along pretty well. I'll have to see if I have created enough time by the time I arrive at the next chapter. But I think it's okay. Now, why am I wondering about that? You see, they are outside of Dragon City. They're not a long way outside of Dragon City, but they are far enough outside of Dragon City that you really have to travel. It's not like you set foot outside of the gate and you're there. No, that's not it. So when you no, I can't tell you guys that. You need to read that in the story. Anyways, yes. I think that time gap is filling in nicely. Let me put it that way. I mean, sometimes you're like, okay, I can tell about that, but yeah, no. If I would tell this, then I would give away one of the big things of this story, and I can't do that. That I mean, you guys still have something, still have to read it, and still have to be able to feel that joy of reading that, of discovering that. So I'm not gonna tell you guys. It's just that time gap. Yeah, it's filling in, and I'll have to see if it's enough when I have arrived at the next chapter. We'll see about that. So yeah, it's okay. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, this is the first draft after all. I do like it that I figured out a few things that I was really missing, that I hadn't included in the story. Things that, like what I just said about the dragon companions and the dragons connecting with each other, and that they couldn't connect to the dragons. In this case, they should know that, and I hadn't included that, and I think it's. I mean, sure, you can when you're writing your first draft is never perfect. If anyone tells you that your first draft has to be perfect, yeah, no, really, they're so wrong about that. That's not how the writing process works. And you'll only realize that when you've written your chapters, and then you turn back to a chapter. Say you've written 5 or 6 chapters, and you turn back to chapter 1 and you read it just to check a few things, and then you're like, oh, but I forgot about that, and I forgot about that, and then you start to fix that as well. But once you've written the whole story and you put it away for a few days, a few weeks, or a month, and then you turn back to your story, and then you start to read it again, and then you'll see if it's actually good, or if you're missing some things, or some things should be rewritten or adjusted. That's when you start your second draft. And it doesn't mean that you need to completely rewrite everything. I mean, I've done that. Yeah, that's been my process at the moment. Well, not yeah. Well, it's been my process. Because the concept of my story has changed so much that that the rewrite was necessary. And I mean, the really first version of this story of Technic Chronicles that I wrote, back then it was called the Dragon Rider Seer, out of the top of my head. At some point, I didn't know anymore who was doing what and saying, and who could be there, and who had what items, and everything. As the author, I didn't know it anymore. So I was like, yeah, I need to start rewriting this because I don't know it anymore. So that's when I decided to do to use the same system that Sarah J. Maas and, for example, also George R. R. Martin use, and that's one point of view per chapter. And that works for me. So I started writing that, and then I hit a writer's block. And that turned out had nothing to do with the story itself. Not in that way, but with me, with some answers that I needed to find. And when I was finding those answers, I started writing the background story of 2 characters, of the relationship between 2 characters. And then I found that actually the Tagonite Chronicles starts there. So it has evolved so humongously. That rewrites were really necessary, and I don't mind that. That was my process right now, up until now. with this, what I'm writing now, the short story and the main series, because I have the grasp of the story now, the grasp of the world, the grasp of the story. I feel I don't need to completely rewrite anything anymore, but I will go through several drafts before I feel that it is good enough to publish. To send it to alpha, pre-alpha, alpha, beta readers. Maybe after that also a developmental editor, but I'm not entirely sure about that, because that brings a huge cost as well. So I'll see about that. Well, if I do developmental editing, then it will be with someone else. I mean, then it would be between the alpha readers and the beta readers, because that seems more logical. And of course, once it's all done, then you've got the line editing and the copy editing and everything else. Now, mind you, if you go through the traditional publishing routes, you don't necessarily need to do all that. I don't advise you to send in your first draft to a publisher if a publisher accepts unsolicited manuscripts, or to an agent. I mean, no, don't do that. Just go through several rounds of editing and go through several drafts. Make sure your story is the best you can make it, and then only then send it in. But if you go through traditional publishing, then you don't need to pay for the editors, because that's what the publisher will pay for. So that's a whole different ballgame. If you go through self-publishing, then yeah, you'll have to pay for them. And I might step on some toes, but even when you've studied English, for example, and you have edited projects by others, written by others, it's always good to have someone else check your work. Why? Because you'll get blind. You won't see your own mistakes anymore, and that's normal. That's how our brains work, because you think you have written something, so you see that your brain tells you that it's there, but it might not be there. A few days ago, I was reading a sentence, and I was reading it out loud, and I had the word "in" twice next to each other. I hadn't noticed that when I was writing it, but a few days later, when I checked it and I was reading the sentence out loud, I was like blah 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 in in it. Hold it. And if you just keep on reading and writing, and for example, you don't speak out loud what you've written, you might not notice it. But also, you become blind to your own text. That is how our brains work. So it's always very good to have someone else check it. And you will find that even in traditional publishing, if multiple people have checked your work, there will still be errors in it. Sometimes it's errors because of formatting issues. You will have something like, okay, that word's not supposed to be cut off like that. But sometimes it's just because someone missed it. And you will see that in every creative project. I mean, one very big, worldwide known example, I think, and that's not for books, but for TV shows, is Game of Thrones. I think it was the last season. I'm not 100% sure about it. Either it was the last season or the season before that. There was a scene where Daenerys had a Starbucks styrofoam coffee cup next to her hand on the table. You know, if you know anything about Game of Thrones, then you know that a styrofoam coffee cup of Starbucks cannot be in there. That's just not possible. And even with such a project, with so many people looking at it, it was in it. And I'm very sure that there are multiple clips of that. They removed it afterwards, but it was in the first airing of that episode. So that's mind-blowing. But it happens. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Your work will never be perfect. And I, for myself, don't have the illusion that it will be perfect. But it needs to be in such a good way that your readers, if you plan to publish it, let me put it that way, if you plan to publish it, it needs to be in such a good way that your readers won't get annoyed if they read something, or won't be dragged out of the story because they read something that just doesn't fit with your world and doesn't fit with the timeline. For example, if you're writing a Victorian age fiction and you include something of the modern times, sorry, but that doesn't work. If you write a story and you don't have enough world building information in it, and there are multiple ways you can do that. You don't need to info dump. You really need to have looked through your character's eyes. But if you don't have enough world building information in it, then your story could take place in any time, any place, any world, and that will drag your readers out of it as well. And those are all things that you should check your story for. And in the first draft, the most important thing is to get the elements in. So your story, the story elements, and your characters. So the events that happen, how your characters deal with the events. And in later drafts, you will fix the world building. You will add world building details, or you will remove world building details. You will add details about your character, or remove things that are not applicable anymore. Things like that. So that's what all those later drafts are also for. So yeah, going through multiple drafts is very normal in this process. So if someone tells you that their first draft was the perfect draft, and they sent that in, and that was published, I sorry, but I wouldn't believe that. And if they send it in and it was published, then either you have a genius writer, or you might have questions about the publication process. But that's just me. That's just my 2 cents on that issue. Because your first draft is never perfect, and that's what I want to tell you about that. And also, never feel guilty because your first draft is not perfect. It's meant to be messy. It's meant to be the start of your story. It's not the end version. It's meant to give you the elements to build that castle with. And that's what your first draft is about. And it's not your first draft is never meant to be sent to anyone for publication. I mean, I know I've sent my first chapter of the main story to several people to get a feeling of what they feel about it and how they see things and how they feel about characters, how they feel about certain world building, things like that. But that's different. That's who I call the pre-alpha readers. And that's different because I know it's the first draft, and I know I also ask them specific questions, like just to get to know if things were working out the way I intended to. And I will adjust based on their answers to those questions. Because some things might not work, other things might need some adjustment. One example is that I need to think about the name of one character because it is too similar to a name of one of my other characters who is very important. So I need to... my apologies. So I need to change the name of this minor or side character. She's not a main character. She's more of a helper. And in Tergane, she has a very important role in the world of Tergane, in the world of Silken, in Silken Babu Empire. She has a very important role, but in the main series, her role is not huge. She's not one of the main characters, while the other character is one of the main characters. So I need to make sure that those names, that those two characters can't be mixed up because of the name. And I found that out because one of my pre-alpha readers gave me feedback on a character of which I was thinking, are you sure that's about this character? Because I wrote that character completely different, I hope. And then she was like, and I said, you sure you're not talking about that character? And then she was like, oh. And she read it again and she was like, yeah, you're right. I was talking about the other character. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to give that other character a new name because I can't have that mixed up. That's the beauty of having a first draft and going through multiple versions. And in this case, I sent it to a few people who read it for me, and this was one of the issues that came forth. An issue I never realized, but that's how I found out. So that's also the beauty of having sparring partners, getting feedback. Feedback is very important, and that's also very handy for drafts. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I wish you all a wonderful Monday, and I hope to see you tomorrow again. Tomorrow I will stream at 1:30 p.m. Central European Time. See you tomorrow.